You're listening to
Catholic Sprouts,
the daily podcast for Catholic kids that strives to plant seeds of faith. Hey there, Sprouts. Today is Monday, November 5th, 2018. It is also the feast day of Saint Elizabeth. Now, as you might remember, last week on the Catholic Sprouts podcast, we talked about what happens after death, and we talked about a place called heaven on the feast day of all saints. This week, we are going to pick up right there, and we are going to talk about what it means to be a saint, how you become a saint, clear up some confusion that you might have, especially if you have non-Catholic people talking about saints. And finally, talk about why we celebrate saints. So it's all about saints this week on the Catholic Sprouts podcast. So today, let's talk about what does it mean to be a saint. Well, first of all, to be a saint simply means that you are in heaven. When we say, for example, when we talk about Saint Elizabeth today, when we talked about Saint Therese or Saint Francis, we say that this is a person that we know lived a holy life and is in heaven with God. Tomorrow we'll talk about how they prove to us that they are in heaven. So that's what we talk about when we venerate or talk about saints. But there's another aspect to the word saint that we need to talk about. We as Christians are all called to be saints. In the Creed, we talk about the communion of saints. That simply means those that are faithful, those that have embraced the gospel of Jesus Christ, that have allowed it to transform their lives. So we all are called to be saints. Maybe we will be recognized by the church and have our own feast day one day, but maybe not. Regardless, we are called to be faithful and we are called to be saints. Now let's talk about saints for just a second. I think sometimes it can be easy to think that saints are perfect, that there's two categories of people out there, sinners and saints. Now this is very, very wrong. In fact, there are two types of people, it's true, but they are all sinners. There are two types of sinners that have turned from sin and accepted God's merciful forgiveness, and those that have not turned from sin. Every saint that we talk about, besides Mary and Jesus, sinned. They weren't perfect. They had failings and they yielded to temptations, but they turned to God, they made amends, and they accepted His forgiveness. That is what it means to be a saint, to be a sinner that has turned to God, asked for forgiveness, and started again. So you might look at your life as one full of sin and imperfections, and that's fine. Every saint started there. The difference is that they didn't end there. They made a change, they chose God, and many accomplished great things with God working through them. And so, Sprouts, here's my challenge for you today. I want you to make a private commitment. I want you to truly believe that you right there, you are called to be a saint. You really are. And I want you to say this simple prayer: Lord, make me a saint. That's it for Catholic Sprouts today. We'll be back tomorrow, but until then, continue to grow in your faith and truly sprout into the beautiful creation that God intended you to be. And finally, a quick word to all the adults out there. I would like to take a second to thank today's sponsor of the Catholic Sprouts podcast. The sponsor is We Adore Him. an adoration scheduling software that makes worshiping our Lord in adoration so much easier. Come check out this software designed by Catholics and for Catholics at weadorehim.com.